Hey everybody, we're here alive and thrive in the world's most culturally diverse city, Toronto, home of Blue Jays, Raptors, Maple Leafs, and Canadian psychic Robert Lindsy Milne. That's me. Welcome to my side of the crystal ball. We've got a doozy tonight. Well, first of all, we've got a short and sweet WWRS, but my guest tonight joining us, Stephanie Forlini, the little girl from Rhode Island, happens to be a mental giant and powerhouse. She just happens to be a TikTok influencer, psychic, intuitive, healer, occultist. And I say occultist because of all the knowledge and all the information that she has, as well as the way she processes her information, the way she comes up with all these fantastic and very real theories and processes. And this young woman is merely 24 years old, and she already is breaking and making her name around the world. And she's going to be the guest for the entire evening in the expert's chair. Before we get to the expert chair and WWRS, I've got a couple of requests. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Please like. The more likes that we get, the more attention. And you know, we're starting to get recognized. We're well over the 1,000 mark. And we've got an announcement about that pretty soon, but I've been told not to tell you yet, but a really big announcement is coming down the line pretty soon. So if you like, please like it. Make a comment, say something good about what you saw, even if you think that my guests are better looking than me or smarter than me or make a comment. It gets us attention. If you want, you can find me on my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. I'm still doing readings, you know, and life coaching, so you can check that out. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now, without further ado, let's light this candle and let's hear what WWRS is about tonight. You know, the other morning I was out for a walk with my dogs, as we always do. The sun had just come up. It was starting to get bright. And as we were walking across the field, I saw this gorgeous fox running across the field, and there was a squirrel in her mouth. And the very first thing I thought was, the fox's babies have breakfast this morning. And the second thing I thought was, the squirrel's babies don't have their breakfast this morning. I thought about it for a couple of moments, and I thought, should I interfere? Should I try to save the squirrel? And I thought it for about a little bit, and then I didn't do anything, because I realized that it wasn't my business. I don't have the awareness, the knowledge, and the judgment to decide what babies get fed and what ones don't. I realize that sometimes it's not our business, and that what we need to do is just let it go. And that's what Robert has to say. My guest tonight, sitting in the expert's chair, comes all the way from Rhode Island. Stephanie Forlini is known around the world as a TikTok influencer. And as a TikTok influencer, she uses her influence around the psychic, intuitive things, psychic abilities. She does readings on TikTok. She is a psychic. She is an intuitive. She's far more than that. and she's a really brilliant young woman. And the concepts, theories, ideas that she has already are truly beyond her years. It's been fascinating talking with her, and you're just going to love her. And here is my guest tonight from the great state of Rhode Island, is Stephanie Forlini. I'm thinking, how does a young woman, mid-20s, become an internationally known psychic intuitive, and TikTok influencer? How does that, and this young woman from Rhode Island, how does that happen? How did you do this?
So it was 100% by accident.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
this was never my intention, really. Like, I'm really excited about it and I love this path, but I never foresaw this path kind of coming my way. It is interesting, definitely, because Rhode Island is literally the smallest state in the United
Yeah.
States. But I had actually started out even more interestingly. I was raised religious, and then I was an atheist, and then I went to law school, and then I just basically did every other path that I could have done. And then the universe was kind of like, hey, nope, that's not it. So then I kind of started, playing connect the dots on my own. And then I just started sharing my journey on TikTok. And I was like, this is interesting. Nobody in my, personal, in real life community want to talk about this. So maybe somebody on the internet will care.
So your TikTok videos are about your spiritual and psychic abilities. Is that correct?
Yes, and a lot of modalities they are regarding that, and pretty much it always ties in with some kind of research because, like I'd mentioned, coming from that law school background, I was very, very what's the word I'm looking for? I was very, investigative.
Curious? Oh, okay.
Yeah, curious, definitely investigative. I needed to understand why it made sense. So I basically started looking at my experiences and trying to find some explanation for it because nobody else had explanation for it.
So from your religious background and as a child, did you have psychic or intuitive senses or feelings from other people?
So it's interesting because I feel like I remember parts of my childhood like that, but mostly I remember being kind of shut down in that context. And I even asked my parents now, and I'm like, was I like this as a kid? And they were like, not at all. And I think that maybe they were just like trying to, pretend I wasn't like this. But
so how did you end up being like this then, or recognizing you're like this?
So it was honestly happenstance, I guess. I don't think anything's a coincidence. I think the universe was pretty like, hey, we'll push her this way and then we'll push her that way and then she'll figure it out. And I really just got a lot of nudges from the universe, and then I went to law school, and I really was miserable, and I went because like I could academically do it. I was going on almost a full ride, so I was like, all right, I mean, maybe this is my path. And I had tried so many different majors in college. I graduated with psychology. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was like, nothing feels right. So then when the pandemic hit and I was working in corporate America as a recruiter for legal professionals, I started doing my own research when I had some more downtime, and I was trying to understand some phenomena that I had experienced as a kid. I did have some memories of things occurring as a kid that nobody could explain. People didn't remember. And I was like, well, I remember it. That was traumatizing. So starting to just poke around, and then it felt more and more right the further and further I got down the rabbit hole.
What kind of things did you see or sense that other people either that didn't see or did see and forgot? What were the things that you were sensing or feeling?
So a lot of it, I think my main, no, I don't like to use the word ability, but like I think my main sense is really just like knowing. I really just like know a lot of things for no reason. And one of them, especially, it happened a lot with my religious upbringing. The church did not like me. I was very vocal about the things that I was like, this isn't true. And the things that they were trying to tell me. And I would ask questions and be like, okay, well, how does this make sense? Or like, what is that about? And then nobody would have answers. So it was interesting. And I was just like, I don't know why I know this, but I know this. And then there were other experiences where one of them I talked about on my TikTok channel, and I know that this doesn't relate to a lot of people, but have you ever seen Stranger Things?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay,
No.
so you might really enjoy
Well, I
it.
have seen Stranger Things, but not the video or the movie.
Okay, so it's a series on Netflix. I
Okay.
think it might be elsewhere too, but I watched it on Netflix, and it's essentially based on a true story regarding the Montauk Project and the government experiments done with children in regards to psychic abilities and stuff like that. So they have a concept in Stranger Things called the upside down, which basically one of the characters slips into the upside down, which is like a mirror universe, basically. And I was so fascinated with this series. And then when I saw things like that, it jogged my memory of when that happened to me as a kid. I literally slipped into a different dimension, I guess you want to call it
Wow,
that.
really?
Yeah. So I had been like looking for answers and nobody had answers. And my parents were like, we would have remembered it because, like,
What
all right,
did you see in that alternate reality or that mirror what did you see?
so all right, so everything pretty much looked the same, just like
Okay.
creepier, like darker, I guess, a little bit.
Okay.
And then what had happened, the way that it happened was I was 6 years old. I found this out. I thought I was 5, but I was 6. And I was painting my toenails in the living room and I zoned out. And I had a lot of instances, especially as a kid and even in college, where I would just like zone out. I would be forced into a zone out. And then I would zone out. And then, when you come back in from zoning out, you're doing the same thing. This time I wasn't. So when I had zoned out, I was painting my toenails. And when I snapped back from the zone out, I was already chugging nail polish remover, which like is not safe. Obviously,
No,
it's
it's not a good
poison.
thing to do. Yeah, right.
Right. So I threw it on the ground and I screamed, and my parents were right there, and I ran over to them and I was like, Mom, Dad, help. I don't know what's happening. They couldn't hear me. They couldn't see me. It was like I wasn't even there. At first I thought they were ignoring me, and I was like, why aren't you responding to me right now? And they just like didn't acknowledge that I was even there. Like they literally could not hear or see me. And it's interesting because that's the exact same thing that happens in the upside down on Stranger Things. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had an experience like that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still am looking for answers for it, honestly, because I mean, even just recently I've started to get some kind of answers. So are you familiar with the Akashic Records?
Yes.
Sure. So the Akashic Records also hold like our soul blueprints, if you're aware of that concept. Beautiful. So I did a soul blueprint restoration. I'm actually getting certified in soul blueprint restoration as well.
All right.
Because of my experience with this. So I had a soul blueprint restoration from this lifetime, and the practitioner asked me like, something when you were 6 years old corrupted your soul blueprint. It corrupted the code of the soul blueprint. What happened when you were 6? And I was like, the only thing that I can think of, I thought I was 5, but it was, when I literally just what I described as slipping dimensions and stuff like that. And she was like, it was that. So I'm still looking for answers there. I have some interesting theories regarding it, but I'm definitely trying to check it out.
We can talk about that and perhaps another time. Then
Totally.
Was that the theory that you were just discussing before we started?
That's a different theory.
Another one. Oh, I can hardly wait up to hear more. So, how did you take being detached like that, the way you did, or going into another state of mind? How did it go from there to being able to see or sense for other people?
So that's a really good question, honestly. I think the answer, I mean, I have so many theories on things just because I'd looked for answers about all of this and nobody had answers. So I was like, I know I'm not just making this up,
Right.
So I started kind of just piecing together the puzzle on my own. And that, I guess, started probably, I don't know, I want to say like my teenage years. And I definitely think it had a lot to do with trauma. And I feel like that's like a theory that I had working with it as well. It's like trauma can be like a Kickstarter.
It's been my experience over my career, anyone that does this work, we all have in common that common denominator. We come from a traumatic background. and often early in life. That's what I've noticed. I've noticed the really good ones, the more traumatized, usually the better you are in this work. It's part of the training for the job. And if you don't become a narcissist, you become an empath. So the ones that do our work, we go through that trauma and we become empathic.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly where I am kind of piecing together a theory as well, but I concur on all of the assertions you've just made. It really started regarding some trauma, and I didn't know what was happening with me. I thought I was just getting, angry or whatever. It turns out my energy was literally just rejecting other people's energies, and I didn't know that me being in a massive public space was me just picking up so many people's energies. I thought I had panic disorders, and I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody had answers for me. So I was really just like, I don't know what's happening with me. And I, again, went for a degree in psychology. And when I had, sought out treatment for like 10 years and nobody had answers for me, nothing was helping. My doctor was like, we don't have any medication. I was like, I can't help but think maybe it's not mental illness. Like maybe there's not something wrong with me here, because nothing you can do can help me.
Okay, so I got so enwrapped in what you were saying, relating, comparing how I went through it. I completed grade 8, and one semester of grade 9. Then I lived on the street. So I'm comparing how I dealt with that outside world the way you did, and it's very, very different. I just knew that I was intuitive and I was supposed to do psychic things, and I didn't go down that academic road. You went down the academic road looking for the answers.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with like my family and my
Good
upbringing.
choice, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I rooted back here, but I think it's important. Everybody has different experiences for different reasons.
Absolutely.
100%. And I think that this happened, this was my path because I, was meant to get to the other side here and then help other people that might be stuck along the way, because with my upbringing and with my family and everything, like it was just kind of expected that I went to college. It wasn't like, what do you want to do after high school? It was like, where are you going to college? And I was like, well, I don't even know what I want to do. So, I mean, it was kind of just, that was the route. And I had, followed it. I played the game for so long. And then I was in law school when I was like, wait, why am I even doing this? This is awful. Like I was always an artistic kid. I was always very intuitive. Like I didn't know that it was intuition, because everybody around me had kind of gaslit me and been like, nope, you have problems. And I was like, okay, I just have problems. So I just had been told to shut down every part of me.
When did you start doing, like in looking at people and giving them information, guidance, direction? When did you start doing that?
Probably, I think I was 23, so 2 years ago.
Consciously doing that, because certainly before that.
Consciously, and that's when I first realized that that's what I was doing. And I didn't.
All right. So when did you first start doing what you weren't conscious that you were doing, that you became conscious? When do you think you started that?
Definitely childhood. I was definitely saying things to people in childhood. And I think it was
did you get in trouble?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you? Yeah, me too. Okay. Can you remember any of those?
I mean, a lot of it resonates from the church experiences when I would say things that I would just be like, what are you talking about? And it was just like an intuitive kind of a download type of thing. But even a lot of it, I think, is sensing a lot of other people's emotions. I'm really, I have to try to not pick up on people's emotions. Like I can feel things as other people feel them. I literally think things. Like I can literally tap into people's thoughts, but it's not intentional. I don't know how to control that yet. I'm still working on it.
Well, when you find that answer, would you let me know?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay. Would you share that one with me? Because that is classic for us. And it just happens where it's like not hearing. you know, when we're walking down the street, when we have hearing, you know, and it just, sometimes you just can't lock it. I get affected in crowds, and I also get affected. You know, one time I was at a Simply Red concert years and years ago, and it was a beautiful concert. I used to really like that band, and the singer and the keyboard player hated each other's guts, or they were having this horrible fight because the energy between them on stage was so intense and angry. It interfered with my feeling about the concert itself, and I couldn't get that sort of aftertaste away. That's what it was like.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally understand with that. And I feel like it's one of those things where you had said a lot of us, we don't know how to not do that. It just is like that.
That's because that's what we are.
Yeah.
It's like not seeing.
Like we're big sponges or like big radio receivers with just like a super wide antenna.
Yeah, something like that. And some of us can use it for helping others, and some of us use it to learn the darker sides of life, or get hurt, or and stay in those places too, you know. So it was about 2 years ago that you started doing readings, but you must have been doing readings with tarot and things like that just a little before 23.
So I had a tarot deck around 19. I like dabbled a little bit.
Yeah.
I really got like fully into it when I was 23.
So what deck do you like? Or
so I have a whole, like I have literally so many decks right here. There's like probably 30. My favorite is the Quantum Oracle. I don't know if you're familiar with that deck.
I'm not. I don't. Please. So
this one is my favorite.
Okay.
So it's kind of similar in nature to the tarot, where it has different suits. There's no major arcana, minor arcana though. So I'll show you if you're interested. It has like all these different cards, and they have different suits of like events or intention or consciousness and spirit and cycle. And I think there's one for people, energy. So it's got a lot of different like suits and things like that. So it's kind of read similarly to the tarot, but a little differently in that nature. And I think I really like the, you know, original tarot deck and everything as well. I think they give different aspects to questions, and you can kind of get more in-depth answers with this one regarding specific situations. And the tarot is really great for kind of piecing things together generally.
Do you use a specific spread, or have you invented your own? You have to have invented your own. You're too independent to be doing.
I definitely am working on my own like official.
Lucky guess.
I tailor it to the situation. Start with the Celtic Cross.
Okay.
And then if I you know, have different questions, I'll kind of be like, all right, well, here it is.
Okay. So how did you get a tarot deck?
That's a really good question, honestly. I think I bought it myself when I was 19. I was I don't even remember how I got introduced to it, but I remember being like, this is really interesting, and I've, you know, seen things about this. Let me see.
So are you more intuitively focused on the cards, or are you more knowledgeably focused on the cards? Because the tarot is based on many different sciences and studies, right? Astrology, numerology, astrology, numerology, Greek mythology, I think Egyptian, and the Jewish Kabbalah. Is that correct? Yeah. Is there anything else?
So
Egyptian hieroglyphics as well.
Yeah. Are you in, I guess, leaning towards more of how I interpret them, or?
Yes. Do you do it like, I know people who study the meaning of the cards, and they become experts on the meaning of the cards. And I know people like me that when I did that, I just put them down. I didn't know what they meant, and I would just look at them.
Yeah.
So
So I think
what area do you fit in?
I've done both. I
Have
think
you? Yeah.
my area
Yeah.
and like my path kind of in things,
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that I have the more like scientific kind of academia background, because
Yep.
I still have that part of me that like has that analytical, what does this mean? What is this supposed to be? But also that intuitive piece that I like merge together. So
You
I,
are the new era.
yeah.
You are the new generation. So you're doing all these things the new way. It's fabulous to see.
Thank you very much. I'm glad it's interpreted that way too. I kind of just was like, what works for me? What I know other people, it can totally be done so many different ways, but for me, this is what makes sense. And because I had been on that academic road for so long, I need that part of my brain to understand things. And that's how I had to like translate the intuition I had always felt but never knew it was that, and then the academia that never fully made sense, but like merging them together, I'm like, I get
Wow.
it.
Wow. That's really powerful. So when you're doing readings, what type of things are you focused on? Is there an area that you are particularly good in, or are you drawn to all areas?
I'm drawn to all areas, honestly, and it pretty much depends on who I'm reading for and what kind of
Mm-hmm.
their question is. I do a lot of general readings, which I
Sure.
find very interesting. And I read tarot as like I explain it always as like a big puzzle. So when I do the Celtic cross or whatever it may be, I go card by card and I'm like, this is one piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, interpret this one piece of the puzzle and then this next piece of the puzzle and how it relates to the first, and then keep going and building on that. And then we cycle back and kind of look at the entire puzzle.
Wow. Okay. So, and that entire puzzle would be
The
that.
reading.
Okay. I was going to say that where that person's at and where they're going and where they've been.
All of
That's
it.
the.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so the parts of the puzzle are the issues that they're dealing with. Is that how you're thinking? Okay.
Yeah. So it's like past, present, future, the
Right.
aspects, what's the lesson, what is their energy about, what is their, hopes, fears, the outcome, all of that, like kind of just the whole
Okay.
conglomeration.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I don't use a medium per se. So when I do readings, I just sit down. Inevitably, I just start to talk, and I tell the person what I'm going to talk about, and then it's a monologue throughout the whole session. But I do have a structure, and I have an area that I talk about, and there's things, and I ad lib through that time, and then I go to the next level and to the next level. Similar to how you're doing it, but differently. Again, coming from a different way. I did it by instinct, and you've done it by your mental abilities and your psychic abilities. That's why I was saying, wow. So, how do you take this awareness and these skills and then become a TikTok influencer? That's the one that I'm interested in too. Like, how does that happen? And one of the reasons that Michelle and Kayla, wanted you to be on with me is so that you can explain this, so that I can grasp it. That's really the reason.
Totally. Thank you for that. So again, like I mentioned, it really wasn't ever my intention to kind of have this following. Of course,
Yep.
it's nice and that would be, very cool. And it is 100% awesome that I'm able to reach the people that I'm able to reach. But going into it, I think the reason that it worked for me, I always think of things in kind of like a formula kind of a way.
Yes.
I think like the formula was just literally my genuine authenticity of like, I'm so interested in this and I'm trying to understand. And I think it's relatable for a lot of people because a lot of people have been kind of shoved down this academic path and had these intuitive abilities, had these insights, and then they were shut down. And I'm trying to, merge the two. I'm trying to understand how they can both coexist, because I mean, the same thing, if you think about even string theory, for example, and there's like, oh, well, this doesn't work and that doesn't work. And that's why it's not the theory of everything, because there are those little caveats. So I'm like, you can't just have an entirely, intuitive world, and you can't just have an entirely like academic world. They need to
Absolutely.
be merged. So
Balance, yes.
I think the formula for why it worked for me was really just like the authenticity of me just being like, what's going on? Like, let's look into this. So I try to explain the spiritual and more psychic practices with the academia, because I think a lot of people have just kind of been shoved down that path too, and they're also very curious.
Okay, so I've been listening to every single thing that you've said, and the things that you're talking about are the exact same issues that we were dealing with 50 years ago as well, only not so much the academic part. And people that did this kind of work were nowhere near as evolved, as knowledgeable or educated as you. But these were the very issues that we were dealing with when doing readings and meeting with people. The same ones that you're talking about right now. It's astonishing.
That's so interesting. And yeah, I think we're getting closer. I think if you think of it as like the Fibonacci spiral, where it's like not like we're going in circles, but we're going in circles on a lower, like another layer and then another layer, and we're getting closer.
The difference is that we can talk about it now, and the difference is that we're becoming mainstream, or more so mainstream. That's the difference. So what do you do on TikTok then?
So
it can't be that complicated on TikTok. So what
there, honestly, it definitely depends, I guess, where the person is coming from and their level of understanding with this, because I've had a lot of feedback that it's either very complicated and it's like some people are just like, I literally can't follow what you're saying, or some people are kind of on par with, oh, I've thought that too. So a lot of it actually really started in my biggest video. It ended up on like World Star and all of these tabloids and stuff like that, but it was regarding the CIA declassified documents. So I stuck my nose really far in the CIA declassified documents.
Wow.
Regarding Project Stargate, and Project Stargate is the CIA's declassified now project regarding psychic abilities and all of that.
Okay, so how did you do all that in a TikTok video?
So what I essentially would do is I would, off the video, I would go into the database and search Project Stargate and whatever topic I wanted to find, like telepathy, or like anything like that. I would find a document to talk about, and then I would go in, I would annotate the document, and then I would use it as a green screen for the background of my video, where I was like, hey, look at this. And then we would talk about the document.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all right. Well, I understand the concept of what you're doing. It's certainly more evolved in the way that I have done it so far. This has been one of the most fascinating, exciting, and enlightening conversations that I've had. And one of the things that is really special is I know now the future, the young generation coming up. You're representative of it, and you guys are going to do a great job. Wow. I feel so proud of what you're doing. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Honestly, like I don't know if you're familiar, you're probably familiar with the Dolores Cannon 3 Waves of Volunteers. No? Okay, so you have to check it out. There's books, and then there are YouTube snippets if you want to kind of get a feel for it. but Dolores Cannon did a lot of work with hypnotherapy and regression. And a lot of the people that she had done sessions with talked about this concept of the 3 waves of volunteers. So basically, there are 3 generations of people like us that have been, incarnated here doing this work. And it's why, I never found my peace with, like law school, or I never found my peace with, something else that like it just never fit. It wasn't the right puzzle. And it's because I feel like my purpose now, I'm understanding at 25, is this work. And this is the most on path I've ever felt. And as I'm staying more and more down this path, the more and more things just keep falling in my lap with like, hey, you were looking for this. And I'm like, yes, I was looking for that. So I think there's the concept of different generations here to all kind of pave the way for the same work,
Well, absolutely. And deep down, we do the same work. And it's really been fascinating talking with you. I understood just about everything. Well, related to just about everything, except for on the educational part. For me, reading and writing has been very difficult. And I didn't learn to read and write until I was in my late teens. I was about 19 or 20 when I actually started to read like words. So I survived on my instinct and my intuition. And I lived on the street, as a teenager, 15, 16, or 14, 15, surviving on my instincts and psychic ability. So the parts that are different in your areas is the education and the knowledge that you bring, which is wow.
Thank you. I think it's so interesting too how we can have such different paths but get to like the same end result. And I think, like I mentioned, I think it's all for helping to translate to other people, because a lot of people could relate with my story, but a lot more people could relate with your story. And there's just different avenues to get to the same end result. And I think it's interesting where I definitely have the theory that I'm working on. And it's actually like a theory of reality, of like how this reality works.
That's a really interesting thought. Tell me more about that new reality that you're working on.
Yeah, so the theory of reality that I'm working on, it pretty much was been accumulation of almost case studies, if you want to call it that. I have that background in psychology. That was like one way, people can research, because a lot of the times you can't just make these things happen in experiments because they're very random. And
Sure.
I had mentioned previously, I went into the CIA declassified documents. That's one of the things from Project Stargate that they talk about as well, where it's like you often can't replicate the circumstances required for these events to take place.
Were you allowed to do that? The CIA document? Like, did you get permission, or did you just like manifest yourself there or something? Or like, what happened?
So it's actually like a set of declassified documents according to the Freedom of Information Act, because it's like taxpayer dollars that pay for it. So
and you found that, and you did that?
Yeah. So I actually didn't really, I don't even know how it kind of came up. Like, I think initially I was working remotely, and this is around the time that the Pentagon released information about the UFOs. So I was like, well, what else has been released as info? Like, I don't know. So I searched, like declassified government documents, and that's how I stumbled into the reading room. And then upon searching psychic phenomena, I found out that they had an entire project called Project Stargate, where they studied all of the psychic information.
Well, I did that psychic work with the security service in the RCMP.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, of course you wouldn't have known that. We didn't talk about it.
I know, it's interesting though. I love that. How was that?
Oh, that's more important with you. We can talk about me another time. This is you're more so and I'm not dismissing you. I just, everybody knows, here sees me every week. You're the star today. All right. So what's your concept of the new reality, or what's your new reality concept?
So as I mentioned, I was using pretty much case studies of my personal experiences only for continuity across all of like the background of all of the constants, I guess, being me and my experiences and my belief system and everything are the same. So it does actually touch upon some work that it's interesting because I academically have no business knowing any of this, but I've gotten like a lot of intuitive downloads and things just kind of piece right together. So it's a lot having to do with explaining the glitches and explaining how the glitches in reality work. If you've ever heard the term like that's a glitch in the matrix.
Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm. So I've had many glitches in the matrix, and
Can you tell me, share one?
Yeah, so actually,
okay.
Yeah, so the first one being actually probably the biggest one that I had ever experienced. This is when I was atheist. And I was at probably the lowest point in my life. Like I was at work one day just like crying, and I was, ready. I was like, I hate it here. Like I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And I was alone because it was like a shitty day, and I was a shift manager at an ice cream store. So I was there working by myself, and then all of a sudden, well, we had Pandora radio, and this was like 2014. So that's an important note. It was like 2014, we had Pandora Radio, which is a radio station that back in the day, you couldn't put on specific songs, you couldn't repeat songs, you couldn't go back. I really only had power to turn on the radio and then potentially pick like a 70s station or an 80s station, but there was no like, nothing.
You
I
had
could
to hear
hear.
what was being programmed.
Right. It was just kind of like the genre of the playlist.
Absolutely.
So I'd worked there about 2 years at this point, and I was there, like I mentioned, it was a really slow day, and I was just like crying. And I was thinking about how people all the time get, I've heard stories of people that have miracles and all of these signs and whatever. So I was like, you know what? Not for nothing. I feel like if I were to ever have a sign, like if I ever, like, I didn't really believe in anything at this point. And I was like, well, I wish I believed in something so that that could happen. And then all of a sudden, the next song that came on the radio was my feel good song, which was Build Me Up Buttercup. And it was my feel good song because I did some volunteer work with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I was a project coordinator, and I helped kind of organize the event. And we worked with earlier high school kids and basically helped with, victims of, drunk driving crashes, and working with the families, and then helping to promote kind of, just being authentic and being a good person and things like that. So it was really fun, and it gave me like that wholesome vibe because we had done a flash mob to Build Me Up Buttercup at that camp. So it kind of reminded me of that in that moment. It just like shot me back to all of those like kids that had such good intentions and such pure vibes. And I was like, oh my God, like if I literally passing thought in my head, I was like, wow, if that could play for an hour straight, I would literally be okay. And then like, again, I was an atheist. So I just went back to work and I was like, that can't happen, whatever. So I start scooping ice cream again. And then after that song ends, it comes back on. And then again, and then again. And I watched the clock, and it was for an hour straight. And I was sitting there and I was like, I get chills every time I say it, but I was like, okay, so something heard that because that was a thought. And I'd worked there for at least 2 years at that point, and I'd never even heard a song repeat once.
What happened?
A glitch, a glitch in the matrix. I don't know.
And how did that affect where you were at? And then did it change the direction? What happened after that? Or was it just a glitch?
So in that moment, it was really just a glitch, and that glitch like pretty much like saved my life right then at that point. Like I was very, very in need of some kind of a sign, some kind of a, hey, like, okay, it'll be okay, like we're here.
So from that step, what was this next one from there? Leaving the ice cream store, or just was that?
How do you mean?
Well, when that glitch happened, you saw, you had that awareness. What was the next step after that awareness?
Well, in that exact moment, it was definitely some like happy crying. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. Like, that's crazy. That's literally my thought that. So, I mean, that pretty much shattered my entire worldview right there, because I was like, I was so sure there was nothing. I was so sure I was an atheist. I was so sure,
Mhm.
this was it. And then in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, like something happened in accordance to my
Right.
thought. So then it pretty much took a very slow, like snowball effect after that.
Okay.
So it was just like in that moment, I was still, early in college, and I'd been looking for answers at right after that. But at the time, this was like around 2014, and it wasn't even that long ago, but even still, there were no answers really when I looked, and nobody had answers. So I was like, all right, I'm going to keep this in the back of my mind, and then like maybe I'll find out eventually. So I had started, dipping my toes into like tarot cards and
Okay.
manifestation and like kind of like researching these
Right.
phenomena, and snowball effect right here.
Okay, that's actually what I was asking. That
Yeah.
that that was the answer to the question that I was asking. How did that affect you,
Mhm.
and how did it affect the direction your life was going in? I think it changed it profoundly.
So not immediately, but yes, after. So it's actually kind of funny because I can imagine. I mean, I am sure you're aware of the concept of spirit guides and things like that.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Okay, love
Yes,
it. So
I
I believe in
I
spirit
know a
guides.
little bit about that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I believe in, spirit guides or my higher self or whatever.
sure,
Whatever you want to call it. I think it's all like a
sure.
tomato situation, whatever you
Yep.
want to call it. And there's just, there is more than we can see that's like helping us out. So I think it's funny, and I like to illustrate kind of the direction that my life took, especially right after that, as an analogy of playing like a game of bowling with bumpers, because it's like I went this way and then it was like nope,
Yes.
and then I went this way, and it was just like
Right.
I went like really crazy, and then eventually it evened out right in the middle, and here I am now.
One of those moments again. I'm not quite sure what to say.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I like analogies like that. It just kind of, I like to kind of give it a good visual. A lot of times I've found that
Mhm.
a lot of people, whoever's like listening or whatever, if they haven't had an experience like that, it's hard for them to kind of empathize what that's like. So I like to use kind of analogies to give it that imagery. But yeah, I really was still in college, and I mean at the time they didn't have, uh a study for, psychic phenomena, paranormal things. So I ended up going with psychology, and then after that I was still like, I don't know what I want to do. And then I ended up going to law school because of this whole event that happened there, because I was like, I don't know what to do. And then after a year of law school, I had like, not like a glitch, but it was pretty much a very obvious like roadblock where it was like, hey, stop. Like I had something that happened, that in the entire history of the law school, probably, I definitely over 100 years old, they had never had a circumstance like this, and they were like, we don't know what to do.
Would you care to share it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So I was there on almost a full ride, like I mentioned earlier. And that's only significant because I wasn't taking out that much in loans. Like I was doing it because I was like, okay, well, I can do it. I'm getting some scholarship help. Like, perfect. It's going well. I had to take out some money for living expenses because Boston is crazy. And it was the second semester of my first year, 1L of law school. And I sat down for my very first exam of that series of that semester. And for reference, I had 5 exams, each of them, because I had accommodated testing because I was diagnosed with ADHD, for, accommodated timing, stuff like that. It was at least, I think it was like 5 hours for each exam period. So we would sit down, and each exam was a 5-hour exam for me because of accommodated timing. And in law school, at least my law school, we didn't have any grades besides the final. So your entire grade depended on that one exam.
Wow.
So that's awful to begin with. But anywho, so we didn't have any frame of reference as to how my professor tested. We had like, past exams and stuff like that, but I had never, been familiarized directly like that. So we sit down, I take the exam, and the proctor had come over and she was like, Stephanie Forlini, this is your exam. And I was like, okay, perfect. And, me being anxious, I was waiting for the second she said go so I could flip it and start going, because I needed every second because it was so
Oh,
much. So I did that, and my professor was like, I can't tell you what will be on it, but I can tell you there will be no multiple choice. So after doing a 2.5-hour essay for this class, I flip it, and then the next thing I see is multiple choice. So I was like, that's not good. So I keep flipping like erratically, and I look to the very front, and there was like tiny print under my name, and it was like the other professor's name for the same class. So I was like, that's not good. um yeah, so they had handed me an exam with my name on it in the other professor's class section. It was the other section of constitutional laws exam, which doesn't maybe seem like a big deal, except for the fact that, again, it's the only grade I get in that class. It is my professor, the one that I should have had the exam for. He was the one
Yes,
that wrote the book that we were studying from. So he was very well versed, and we read different cases, different types of concepts about the same thing. And the multiple choice was very specific to the cases we didn't have to read. So it was a lot. And they basically were like, we don't really know what to do because this hasn't ever really happened. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know. And then they were like, okay, just try to finish the exam. And I was like, all right. So I did that. And then afterwards, basically they were like, okay, we're going to work it out with the professor that, you know, we can figure some out, like some grading system, because again, I was there on scholarship and I had to maintain a higher GPA than just like the minimum because
of
I
course.
needed that scholarship.
Right.
So that was the highest weighted class that I was taking at the time, not to mention my best subject. So I took it pass fail. I did pass it, but the thing is I only got like the credit to pass. I didn't get any weight towards my GPA. And then they were like, okay, well, I mean, you can do it pass fail like that, like, which I decided to do because I did have 5 full exams of that, like
Okay.
25 hours of exams in addition to the studying required for that. So it was just too much. I was like, I literally can't take another exam right now, not to mention it wouldn't be graded with my peers anyway. It's kind of the same thing. So
Yeah.
I can't. So I'll just do it pass fail. And then I asked the dean and I said, well, what would happen if I, you know, I literally said, what would happen if I just came so close to my scholarship requirement? Like literally so close. And she was like, oh, don't worry, we'll help take care of that if it happens. I lost my scholarship by 0.01 GPA credits. And I asked the dean immediately because I got a scholarship letter saying it was being revoked. So I asked her and I was like, hey, you said that you would help with this. And she was like, yeah, I don't know, you could try emailing financial aid. So, I mean, in that moment, I was very like disgusted where I was like, you guys kind of screwed me
Right.
here. And then I have to be
Yes.
the one begging for the scholarship back. Like, there really should have been no reason that that even happened in the first place. So I was just like really the unwillingness. And I kind of sat there and realized, and I was like, wait, I hate this anyway. Like, I don't want to do this anyway.
And you quit or
I did.
stopped.
Yeah, I did.
You didn't
Honestly, because
quit. You learned.
it was like it had to, I thought about it and I was like, you know what, it almost had to happen that way though, where it was like some kind of like a little injustice to show me again, where it's like, hey, you don't even like this. And I realized in that moment I was like, wait, I'm doing this for society because society told me this is what success is. My parent, you know, everybody told me
Absolutely.
this is what you
Right.
should do, this is
Right.
success. So I was
Right.
like, wait, I actually hate this. So why would I, you know, make myself miserable for another 2 years in addition to a lifetime of work
Of course.
for this?
So
So yeah.
what you did is you learned as much about the law as you wanted to learn, and you learned how to what it feels like when you're doing something you don't want to do. So
Yeah.
it was a really great experience.
Oh, 100%. I
It's
really
really
think that
successful. Yeah.
yeah, no, I totally agree that everything, I think that everything, there is a lesson in everything if you find it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Of
not saying
course,
that,
every
yeah, I'm not
experience.
totally. People always say it sometimes where I'm not saying I'm justifying, you know, trauma. I'm not saying I'm justifying shitty things, but if something shitty happens, you can either look at it glass half empty as, oh, this is shitty, or you can
Uh,
choose to see the glass half full and be like, I understand something here. So let me take this forward and move forward.
that's exactly right. That's once again another moment of how can you know this? You're much too young to know this. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Wow. I'm so besides being a young wise person, um, besides being that, um, what other things do you do? Do you Uh, are your readings like the way you speak now?
Yeah, so one interesting thing about my reading, so I do
Please.
have a store that I started a few years ago when I started my TikTok channel. It really kind of started because I was just making kind of jewelry and crystal things for myself, and I was posting just me making them, and people were like, "Wait, I love this. I want to buy this." And I was like, "Oh, wait, really? Like maybe I could sell these. Like these are cool." And I thought that was really interesting and different. So I got a lot of encouragement on that. So I ended up starting a store where I sell, jewelry, crystals, herbs, and things like that. And I started doing readings for clients and stuff. So it's really interesting because a lot of times when I do my readings, um, I find that a lot of things come out channeled, and I don't even know that I'm doing it, where I'm reading the cards as I normally would, and then it kind of just pops in as like a thought of something, and then I say it, but I realize after I say it, I'm like, that's not how I would normally say that. Like I wouldn't say it in
Yes.
that wording at all. So then I
Yes.
ask them and I'm like, does that phrasing mean anything
Right.
to you? And they're like, yes, it does. And I'm like, got it. All
Okay.
right. So a lot of times it's just like channeled.
Okay. I've noticed that your pricing has interesting numbers to them. Are you a studier of numerology by any chance?
I find numerology very interesting, and it mostly started with, seeing the synchronistic numbers all the time. And for me, that was a really big indicator that, you're on the right path. And I
Yes.
think I think that there's totally different ways of interpreting the numbers, numerology, angel numbers, whatever you want to call them.
Okay.
But yes, I do follow and subscribe to the meanings behind the numbers and everything, which is why I followed that pricing on my website. It was just something that kind of resonated with my soul. So I went with it, and it's interesting. I actually have one of my tattoos on my finger here. It's three
Is
three
that
three
333?
three
Yeah,
three three.
repeating numbers. There's some significance for you with repeating numbers.
Totally.
What's the significance to you?
So in terms of meaning,
They have some kind of effect on you. You
for
noticed
sure.
earlier on 111
Yep.
in a right as 333 that you like that one so much. It's on you. So
Totally.
right.
Yeah, so the numbers, essentially, it had kind of just happened. It was very happenstance, where, I mean, I don't believe in coincidences, but it was, at first I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then at some point I was seeing them like numerous times a day, and it's not like I'm looking for it. It's like I get a notification on my phone and I look down and it's 222, like when I get that notification.
Okay.
Or yeah, or like I see a
Okay.
license plate and it's 777, or it's just like they're
Right.
everywhere. And it's not like I'm
Okay.
looking for them. It's just
Right.
like it's screaming at me. So I found it
Okay.
really interesting because a lot of it in the beginning, I was just like, okay, well, what is this? I don't know what to do with this. And then I realized, okay, well, what was I just thinking about when I saw that? Or what was I just doing when I saw that? And then I kind of, reverse engineer it, so to speak. I kind of like, okay, I saw 1111, and then I was thinking this. Okay, so what does that mean? And then I'll look up like 1111, something like that. And then I'll piece it together where it's like, oh, you're on the right path. It's mostly like an encouragement of,
Okay.
hey, you're right. Good job. It's like almost I think, okay, here's have you ever seen the Hunger Games?
Oh, the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Um, yes. Well, wait a minute. Which one? What do they do in the Hunger Games? And I probably know.
So the Hunger Games is where they basically pick tributes from each district, and then they have to like go in this arena and like kind of fight to the death. That's not the reference I'm talking about, but that's the
Okay.
movie.
Okay. Oh no, I don't know that one.
Okay, so essentially in the movie, they're in this arena like fighting, for the victory. And then their sponsors, they're like watching the whole thing. So if they need something in the arena, the sponsor can see it and they'll send something in. And
Okay.
they might, like, in the moment, the person that needs it might not even know that they need it, and then they get it and it's like, oh. And I think of synchronicities like that, where it's like your
Okay.
sponsors are like, hey, good job, like.
Right. Okay. Okay. Um, and how do you do your mentoring?
So it focuses mostly on what the individual's kind of needing at the time. So I really think it's important to kind of start where each and every person is like that, of course, where, if somebody's not that there's like, how did I describe it to somebody once? It's not like there's like levels of like, this is 1, 2, or 3. It's just like, it's a whole puzzle. So if you start in this corner, I know that next you're going to need these pieces and then these pieces. And like, it's kind of like working outward into the middle of the puzzle. So if somebody's stuck on a concept or they're like, I just don't get this, or, could you maybe show me some guidance? Like, what did you do here? It's always kind of like, I'm definitely not telling you what's the way, because everybody has their own way and there's totally different ways to go about everything. But this is what worked for me. And based on what you're saying, have you tried this? And then they'll be like, oh, okay, let me check that out.
You are a very evolved being. I'm kind of speechless. You are wise for your years. What's your theory on manifesting? I'm just curious about that. Do you think that that's possible? Or do you think, oh yeah, manifesting?
I totally believe that manifesting is possible. And kind of how I mentioned, I don't think there's just one way to do it. I think there's lots of different ways, but essentially I think they're all, if you take each and every formula, so to speak, of manifesting and you boil it down to, the raw ingredients, the essentials of manifesting, it's pretty much like your genuine desire for something and then your like will for it. And then your ability to just kind of forget about it afterwards. You need to like release it, almost sort of like, I use the analogy of a waiter at a restaurant. If you're ordering something, if you like order something, you're like, hey, okay, I'd like this. And you have to like let them, go put it in, it's get processed and then it comes back to you. But if you're incessantly like pulling the waiter before he even gets to the kitchen, you're like, wait, but I still want it. And he's like, I know, you give me a second. And it's the ability to kind of separate yourself from that desire, and it's coming from a place of non-attachment. And like, it's not like a desperation, like I need this, because I feel like that beacons to the universe is like, I don't have this. But it's more of like that would be really cool. Like, that would be really cool if it happened.
So I see manifesting as, so you think, so you are. What you focus on, what you send out comes back. When you send energy out, if you identify what it is you want, the energy will come back. It's like miracles are only miracles until you know how to do them, and then it's not a miracle anymore. It's something different, but it's not a miracle. And the way you learn how to do miracles is you start with the little ones, right? You don't walk on water like that's the gold medal round at the Olympics, right? You get that, you get that medal, right? You stand on the podium, they play the national anthem or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you get. So you don't start there. You start with learning how to always get a parking spot, or you look at which may not be a big deal in Rhode Island, but it's but it's certainly a big deal in a place like Toronto or New York or something. Or you can learn, you and the way that you do it, it's simply, if you believe it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. It's not you want to believe it. It's if you believe it, you can do it. So when you set a goal, set it not for the highest, what you really, your greatest dream. Set the goal to the highest level of what you believe you can do. Mm-hmm. Then you will get it, and then you can go more. So I see manifesting as focusing on something and it manifesting in front of you, whatever that may be, whether it be money, whether it be an experience, whether it be a place to live, whether it be a place to fly, whatever it is. So you think, so you are.
I like that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And one of the things I point out to people that are, unconscious manifestors, and I say to them, hey, when I explain to them that they are a manifestor, and then I say, when you find yourself in a negative state, when you find yourself going through a really difficult time, ask yourself the question, what am I thinking about? And I bet you that what you're thinking about is the problem that you're going through. And if you just change your focus a few degrees, you'll also change what you're drawing to you.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I concur with that. And I like that way that you just put it. Because now that you say that, I think about it, where the thing that really pretty much changed my whole life, even very recently, was being my own best friend rather than like my own worst enemy. If you think about it,
Absolutely.
it's like a glass of water is like half full, where I see a lot of people have a lot of hard time with this. And I think about it where, I mean, this glass is obviously more than half, and I have a little bit of lemon juice in here, but it's obviously a little more than half. But if there's a glass of water that's half full, it's both, half full and half empty at the same time. It's just your perspective that changes it.
Absolutely.
So
And
it,
both are correct.
right. So if you want to be
And
your own worst
incorrect. Yep.
enemy, you can. And
Absolutely.
if you want to be your own best friend, you can. But I switched to
Absolutely.
being my own best friend and like, doing, supporting
Nice
myself
things.
and thinking like that. And then my whole life changed.
Absolutely. And happiness is a conscious choice. So our instinct, though, is we're hardwired to expect and focus on the worst case scenario. We're hardwired for that. Now the reason we're hard, and it's good in some ways that we're hardwired for that, because that's what helped us evolve and get out of the caves. If you think of, the Flintstones, and, imagine Fred and Barney going out for, they're out hunting and they have this wonderful time, and they get, they catch some food and they have a barbecue, and it's a fabulous time. And Barney gets up and goes to have a drink of water from the river, and a big crocodile eats Barney. If Fred only remembered the wonderful time they had before Barney got eaten, then Fred's going to be next. If Fred remembers that if Barney that what Barney did, then it's not going to happen to Fred. So being hardwired for the worst case scenario is important. But we also have to learn that we're in control of that hardwired, and we have control over seeing it from different points of view. We have to work at it.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because that's the book that I'm working on right now, and that's the book I was literally just working on before this call.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
That's the way I think.
Yeah, and it's very much about the same exact thing, where it's like I call it default mode.
Okay.
That's like our brain's default mode. We are in that sense a product of our environment. We can't be something that we have never experienced. We can only mimic behaviors. So like, if like how we were talking about earlier with like dysfunctional relationships and stuff like that,
Right.
if you've never seen a healthy relationship, that's why people fall into abusive relationship patterns.
Absolutely.
Where you're like, why? And you're like, you don't get it. You don't know it from their view.
Yes. And when we're doing our work, if we have never experienced something, we won't be able to see it, identify it, explain it. So if we've never been injured, we will never be able to sense it in someone else. So everything that we do in our work is because we've experienced something like it. So we have to have some kind of experience to compare it to. Regardless of how that spirituality comes through, it's coming through your being or the medium's being, and the information coming through is limited to the capacity of the medium.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that. Have you ever heard of the book? It's the Freedom of Choice.
No.
It's by Dr. Thomas Choco. It's like a PDF on his website, and it's like by donation. And it's really fascinating because it was talking about the same thing too, where it's like the first example, so to speak, is if there's a dog and the dog has, $1 million diamond or a pile of dog poop in front of it, like what's the dog gonna pick? The poop, obviously. Like it's not going to be like, oh, the value in this diamond. Right. It's probably the book said it'll probably pee on the diamond, because and the dog will be perfectly happy about its choice because it doesn't know what it's, it doesn't know the value of what it hasn't experienced. Absolutely. It doesn't have the capacity. So that's it's like correct. Not that it's good or bad or worse or better. It's just that it is, and everybody has a different level of consciousness for this information where it might not resonate at the time, but later down the road, oh, I might understand, why. So.
Yes. So if you've never had an experience with something, there's nothing in your brain to compare it to, and you won't be able to identify it and help that person get over it.
100%.
Right. So that's why we light workers or whatever, we have such a broad expanse of experience. It's also part of the job. It's part of it, right?
I totally agree. And I think it's because, as I briefly mentioned earlier, it really helps us be relatable, I guess, for the people that are potentially in the spots that we were stuck in, where we're able to be like, I empathize and I was there too. And because I think if we, like you mentioned, if we just, started at the, heaven or whatever, and we were just like up here knowing all of this, it's not relatable and people don't understand. So it's like, it's that bridge that helps people, like we throw that rope back over, you know what I mean? Because we've climbed out of there, like,
because we absolutely, because we're doing it and working on it ourselves.
Totally.
You might also notice that the type of people you'll deal with will be, when I was doing a lot of work on my the sexual abuse that I experienced as a child, and some of the things I had to do on the street. When I was working on that, just about everybody who came to me for readings had sexual abuse issues, and I was about a page ahead of them in the book. You don't need to be any farther ahead. So I was, and I was learning by sharing the information that I had learned. So
100%. There's always, I've had experiences like that too, where it's like I'm like, I just learned that, like I just turned that page.
Absolutely.
So it's
like
right. now I can help you get on the same page. Yeah, absolutely. It's so crazy.
That's right. You only have to be a page. You only have to be a paragraph ahead of your students or your clients, right? That's 100%. All you need to be, right? You don't need to be much more.
Like there's a I don't know the word I'm looking for, a parable maybe, but it's like every good teacher is also a student, like from every encounter, you know what I mean? I really think that every single person I encounter, every single situation, I think that there could be a lesson. And I think that I could always learn something, it's like, oh, like, did I learn, oh, like that showed me to, like, I don't know, have more compassion in this area or consider it from a different perspective.
We teach what we need to learn. And when we have learned enough about what we're teaching, we'll go on and teach something else. Mm-hmm. So I often say to people, if you want to learn how to do something, teach it. Just teach it, and you'll learn how to be it and how to do it.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So yeah, if you want to learn how to do something, teach it. Because you only have to be a paragraph ahead. Yeah, you're the expert. And what's an expert? Somebody from out of town with a briefcase. Yeah. So.
I like that. That's funny. It's true though. I mean, like these, quote unquote qualifications, where I think it's so interesting that I mean, even, people with degrees or whatever, what does that mean? Like, are you actually an expert in the field, or do you know what the textbook has showed you? Do you know these real life examples?
Correct.
Do you know how to
That's right.
apply?
That's right.
I think that's,
I think it's a whole lot different dealing with somebody when you've read the experience in a book as opposed to going through the experience in real life.
100%. And I mean,
You
I'm not like knocking educational learning for sure,
Me
but
either.
I think that experiential learning is more crucial, honestly. Like, you need to be able to understand and like actually, even if you're teaching yourself, you know what I mean? You actually need to
Absolutely.
understand. And I always say sometimes where I'm like, I knew that, but I didn't understand. And like, I
Right.
intellectually knew it, but then when it came up and I was able to apply it, I was like, oh, like I get it. Like I get it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So the next thing I have to ask, and if I don't, Michelle will yell at me. Tell me about being a TikTok influencer.
um,
That is the right word, isn't it?
yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
definitely think it's influencer. It's
Okay.
interesting, especially with being in such a niche as like spirituality or consciousness.
Okay. Yes.
It's definitely really interesting, and I get lots of comments. I think would be one of the most like it's obviously got upsides and downsides. I feel like everything does. It's that duality, you can't have one without the other.
That's
um
what I say. What we are one way, we are equally the opposite.
Totally. So it's
Yeah.
interesting because yes, I absolutely have been able to work with really cool institutions. I've gotten to interview with the Monroe Institute. I was actually able to get them to release page 25 of their gateway
So more
project.
about tell me about your, like, what do you do on TikTok? I'm being dragged along, kicking and screaming to doing stuff on TikTok, but what do you do on TikTok?
So personally, TikTok for
Yes.
me is I have an array of videos, I guess. There's some
Mm-hmm.
trend videos where it has a specific audio and you kind of put your message to the audio.
Okay.
And I do some of those, and then I do some where I talk about documents and I have the green screen behind me. I
Okay.
do some where I kind of just give some insight as like, oh, this is, here's my opinion that literally nobody asked for. Like, here it is. And then sometimes I respond to questions, and then I'll be able to like answer somebody's question like that. So there's like an
So
array of things.
so how do you go from um a mid-20s young woman from Rhode Island, in Rhode Island, to a world influencer on TikTok? How did that miracle happen?
Um, I honestly, that was decently happenstance again. Where I think it just, maybe my message resonated. Maybe a lot of people resonated, and the more that my videos get shared and commented on, the more the algorithm boosts it to more people. And I actually am genuinely very surprised that my content has reached internationally the way that it has. I have people join my lives sometimes from like South Africa or
Isn't that wonderful?
Lebanon, like these places
Yes.
where I'm like, I would never have even thought that my content would reach you.
Yes. Wow.
And yeah,
What a
like
wonderful
Australia,
world.
literally everywhere. Like it's awesome. It's really cool the
How,
way that
how
internet works.
much how much time do you spend on TikTok?
So it depends. I try to respond to my comments and questions and things like that, because the interaction is also very important. um it's difficult, I guess, with that aspect of, I guess, one of the not like downsides, but one of the least favorite parts of mine is like fielding really not nice comments. Like, some people are pretty aggressive and very opinionated in a lots of ways, which is fine, but like it's really interesting that something I said trigger them so much. So it depends on
Yes.
like fielding the comments. So I really try to get that balance. But on TikTok generally, I don't watch too many TikToks. I really post more
Okay.
than I watch.
Okay.
um but the posting videos, I'm pretty sure they're up to like 3 minutes now. I heard that they're going up to 10. I don't have that feature yet. And I think that's very excessive for TikTok, in my opinion, but
10 minutes, you mean, for time, you mean?
yeah, for a
Right.
time of a video. So it depends, because if
Okay.
my video, for example, if my video is 3 minutes long, I spend however long it takes me to record it. I usually do multiple recordings if I'm like, oh, I didn't love the way I said that here. So I'll do many recordings. I do different drafts of them, and then I have to edit them. And then I have to, and like by editing them, I put, you know, some music to the background, and then I put captions on it, and different imagery and things like that. So it can take a decent chunk of time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it has
And
a good.
with doing readings, mentoring, using TikTok, and your mystical store, you're making your living. And is this what you want for your life?
I don't know, honestly. Like, I think it is. But I have this this non-attachment, I guess. It's weird, where, you know, you get to, you know, learning about things in different perspectives, and it's like I find that it's really fun, and I like it, and I think it's cool, and it's very different than the lifestyle I was living even 2 years ago. And I like it a lot. I'm writing a book now, working on a theory, and I think this is the most on path I've ever felt, the most in touch with myself I've ever felt. And I had spent so long kind of looking for that. I had spent so long, you know, everybody else said I had to do it this way. So I tried it this way because I was like, all right, yeah, you're older than me, got it, whatever. So I tried it, and everything felt misaligned. Everything did not feel right. And there's times, of course, where like even recently, it was my my old coworker's birthday from my past corporate job, and I had posted a video that we took at work. It was like we were all kind of messing around, doing like we had like a bet going on. It was just like funny. So I miss, of course, that capacity of just the, you know, casual like shenanigans. But I also, for my soul, this is what resonates with my soul 100%.
I understand that. So one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
Thank you very much for asking that. So I have my TikTok channel. My name on TikTok is Stephanie with a PH, and then Amber, like the color.
Stephanie Amber?
Stephanie Amber 07.
Okay.
And my website also is Stephanie with a PH again, Forlini.com.
I guess that's all it takes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.
This has been really awesome. Thank you very much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you and being on your podcast. So I hope everybody likes the other side of the crystal ball.
Wow, get out the oxygen. What an amazing guest we had tonight. Thank you for Stephanie Forlini, all the way from the wonderful state of Rhode Island. Thank you for being on my side of the crystal ball. It was a great, great, great conversation. Now, before I do say goodbye, I have a couple of requests. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. It is so, so very important. You're the ones that give us the ratings. And if you we get like some points. And then if you make a comment, write something, we get a little bit more points. And to get the piece de resistance, you just press that subscribe button, and subscriptions are complimentary and free. It will push us way up into the ratings. Because we've had your support out there, some of us, you brought us over 1,000 subscriptions. We need a few more, but please, we're relying on you. You can also find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere else you get your podcasts. There's a special announcements where there's going to be a new place you'll be able to get your podcast, but not quite yet. And now, if you would like to get in touch with me personally, you can find me on my website, www www.robertlindsymilne.com. And by the way, I'm still doing psychic readings and life coaching and all that kind of stuff. You can also find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Just before I say goodbye, I'd like to leave these words with you. Do good, stay safe, and above all, just be kind. Good night, everybody.